Hey YouTube, it's your boy. You already know the deal. I'm Taicho, that's X. Let's get right into it. So here I have our ARC data that we imported using Python from the last video. You can check that out here, where we've been working to web scrape the One Piece wiki fandom and essentially create a database. So we have two tables in our One Piece database now. We have the ARC data here, and we also have the Saga data here. So what I thought would be a cool transition is to see how we can start to manipulate and enrich the data that we have, since we now have two tables of differing granularity. So with that being said, what we're going to work to do is join this data. This will give us one table with both levels of granularity and give us a little bit more quality data that's enriched. So what I have up here, I have this with clause where I went and I cleaned up the Saga data. I actually did this in the One Piece data analysis using SQL and Power BI. You can check out how I did that here. So we're going to use that as our starting point, and we have the results printed out here. Really what it's just doing is, between the Saga data here with blanks in the final two sagas, just kind of inputting some basic values and then putting no where no. Cool. So that establishes where we are. What we want to do is we want to join these two tables. Normally when you do joins, there are a bunch of different types: left joins, right joins, inner joins, self joins, outer joins, all the different types. But you're usually looking for a unique identifier that exists in both tables where you can join the information based off of that. Unfortunately, with these two tables, it's not going to be as straightforward as that, because there's different levels of granularity and there's no exactly unique value that we can join on. There's no consistent Saga name that we can join on a consistent ARC name to get good results. Same thing with the links. So what we're going to do is a conditional join. The conditional join will be on the chapter start dates and end dates, and what that will entail is essentially identifying what saga each arc belongs to based on where the chapter falls in the saga start and end. So we're going to use what's called a between clause to join based off of the arc chapter being greater than or equal to the saga chapter start, and less than or equal to the saga end start. X, who's just reached us, he's going to help us, since he has the SQL expedite the scripting. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do, and for this purpose of this join, I'm just going to focus on like the volume and chapter info. So X, if you can first give us a script for the different columns, or if you could write out the different columns that we want to select. So basically we're going to start with the select. Thank you. He's giving us the different columns. So let's see. So normally this is what it would look like for the columns, and then we would tell it to where we want to take the data from. So we want to get it from this common table expression that we've created up here. I'll put that down there. I'm just going to call it X. And then the next step that we want to do is basically just going to do a left join. on the sample database. Oh, sorry, not sample database. .dbo.arcs, and I'm going to call that A. So we've told SQL Server, what columns we want to grab from the two tables, and they're denoted A and S because if we don't tell it specifically which ones, since they have the same names like name and link, and all-star and such, we'll get an error because SQL won't know which ones that we want. So we denote A for arc.name, S for saga.name, and so on and so on. Cool. So those are the columns. This is our source table that we're going to grab it from, and then from there we're going to join the one-piece arc. So we've told it what table we want to join, but we have to tell it how we want to join it. And basically what we're going to do is, as I mentioned, a conditional join on the chapter start state. But what we actually have to do is cast the character as a different data type. Reason being, when we exported all this data from Python, we exported them as character types, so while they may look numeric, they're actually characters. So X, if you could just give us that conditional join logic, that'd be great. Thanks. Cool, so I'll put this down here. So here's our conditional join. This will select data from the Saga table that we have here that has cleaned up information. We will join the arcs table, we're calling that A, and we will join by casting the arc chapter start as an integer, so that'll make it a number pretty much, or an integer. And we're going to join that number so long as it is between the start of the Saga chapters and the end of the Saga chapters. And this should give us what we want. Ta-da! So now we have a bigger data table than we've had in the past. As I meant, if we go and check, we only have 31 records here, 11 records here. Still we have 31, but we have more columns, and we have essentially more information. So we have, if we go through it, we have the name of the arc, Romance Dawn, the saga that it belongs to, the link to that arc, the web link to the saga, and then the corresponding information at both the arc level and the saga level. And we can kind of know which is what because the saga only has one start, whereas because arcs are part of a saga, each arc is going to have a different starting point, and we can see that with the chapters here as well, a little bit more distinctly. So that's pretty cool. One thing we want to look at, any blanks, zeros, we can see down here, egghead arc, the chapter end is 0. The reason that is coming up as 0 is because, at least for the arc, in the arc data, we know it's still ongoing. So X, if you could just give us a case statement that cleans up the chapter end for arc and just inputs the max chapter, which is 1086. Update that. Okay, so here we have a quick case statement. Case when arc name is edheg arc, we want to put hard code 1086 in there, and then otherwise keep it how it is, and we'll end that. So that should clear out to 0, and bam, it's cleared out to 0. So cool, we have all the different arc information now with its associated saga, which I think is pretty cool. It adds a level of granularity. We can kind of get a sense of, okay, per each saga, how many arcs are there. So let's see, East Blue, 6 arcs. Alabasta, 11 arcs. Sky Island Saga, only 2. Only 3 for Water 7. Thrill Bark is literally just 1 arc. Like what? Saba Odi, Amazon Impel Down, and Marineford. Those 4 go into the Summit War arc. And then we enter a post-time skip where pretty interestingly, a lot of these look the post time skip arcs sagas, I mean, have a lot less arcs, but the arcs are so much longer. But yeah, that'll about do it for this video. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. If you are, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be coming out with more and more content as we start to transition away from all the data engineering, Python and SQL, to more of the data analysis and reviewing of the actual content. But we got to lay the foundation first before we get all to the fun part. But yeah, until then, Taicho out.